Hello and welcome to Storybridge with Patti Lucia. In the following episode, my special guest, Saif Juarez Burke, a former sustainability doctoral student and current refugee from academia, talks about her journey into the void. And, and a warm welcome to Storybridge with Patti Lucia. This is your host, Patti, and I am thrilled to be sitting here with my guest this evening, Saif Juarez Burke. I was promising her I would say her name correctly, and I certainly hope I have. Saif is a refugee. I like to refer to her as a refugee from academia and from the academic sustainability movement. A woman who's been very, very passionate about sustainability and so pursued it in college, right through to a doctoral level, and had some very, very interesting experiences there, to say the least, that have somewhat thrown her into, or perhaps, Saif, you have jumped into this void space. I like to think of it as there is the story that we live, and then there's the story that we tell, and there's this gap often in between, which can be considered a void space. And you are in the void space. You have come into a position where the story that you were endeavoring to live was not the story that was being imprinted upon you through academia. And so here you are in the void space, and it is a real honor to join you here in this full of potential, creative void space. I know it doesn't feel that way to you often. So I wanted to say a very warm welcome to you, Saif. It is such a pleasure to spend this time with you.
Thank you, Patti. It's good to be here.
So I would love to, you and I have talked pretty extensively, but I want to start at the beginning for my listeners in terms of your journey, which sounded to me like a familiar journey, right? It's you have had a kind of a lifelong passion for Earth, for sustainability, for living in harmony with Earth. And this is what you wanted to have as your life's work, your contribution, your passion. And of course, like so many of us, it was natural to choose to go to school, to study, to kind of endeavor to learn as much as you could in this area, so that you could be the best instrument for this work in our world. And so I'd like to begin at the beginning for you. Your first inspirations, how this passion came about, and why you decided to make this your life's work.
Thanks. Let's see. Well, I guess the very beginning of my, let's say, sustainability or environmental interest or concern was already when I was a teenager or pre-teenager. I grew up in a very beautiful town on the coast in Spain, and at a time where the urban speculation was like going crazy. There was a lot of building, a lot of speculation, and I could see, or I had the feeling that there was a big disconnect between actually valuing the beauty that we have in this place and the nature, and what's our relationship to this space, and how it's just being used for, well, economic purposes. So I think this was actually the first seed of wanting to do something about this that got me into wanting to study environmental studies and everything that followed.
It was the desire to preserve the beauty that you had grown up with and had, that sort of thing, like support development, but preserve beauty, natural beauty.
Yeah, I guess I hadn't thought of it that way, but yeah, I guess it had a lot to do with that. Yeah.
So then what was the next step?
So then I studied environmental sciences in Barcelona, another beautiful city. And I was very excited about this, but the fantasy that I had about university, which would be like students having philosophical discussions in a semi-dark cafe, smoking weed, was very quickly debunked by a very very functional approach, very technical function approach to teaching sustainability, which seemed to have very little to do with, as I saw it at that moment, having thinking about what is the source of the environmental problems that we have, and instead just looking for technical solutions. It was very technical and natural science based, but it didn't seem to have a lot of depth to it.
So can you give us an example of this technical approach? So when you say, so you were hoping for an approach that would go to the root of these problems that that you saw, but that is not what happened. So when you say a technical approach, could you expand on that?
Yeah. So for example, we'd be learning about the engineering behind what's the word in English? Water cleaning.
Yeah. So water filtration systems. So those processes that provide drinking water for.
Yeah, exactly. For big cities, for example.
Big cities.
Or recycling programs, which all make sense and are important, but it didn't seem to be coupled with questions like, well, how much water are we consuming? Why are we consuming it? What's the capacity of the place where we're living to provide water for how many people? What's the development model that is? All of these questions that go behind, or why is water polluted in the first place? What kind of going into the water? So it's a little bit this end of the pipe solution approach, rather than looking more at, well, can we change the products that are going into the water? So I felt that there was a lack of depth. And in that particular program, which was the way environmental sciences was taught all around Spain, the model, it was 80% technical and natural science based, and it had very little social science or political science integrated into it. So I actually wrote my dissertation, which was expected to be another technical or more natural science based study. I based that on the need to integrate social sciences into how environmental sciences was taught. And so at the beginning, I was looking for this integration between the different disciplines as what I thought would be a way of solving this issue.
So when you say that, just to kind of dig into that a little bit. So when you say in how environmental sciences are taught, do you mean going all the way back to, say, elementary level or, grade school level, how we are taught about environment? So you were basically looking at how do we, basically you were trying to address our relationship to the environment through the educational system, but from a different perspective. Is that it? You were proposing
I
coming
think
at it from a different...
At that time, because this for me was a bit of a process also for my own perspective. At that time, I thought, oh, the problem is that there aren't any social sciences and the solution will be there. I've now come to see it differently, as the problem goes deeper than that. And but so at that moment in time,
when you were saying social sciences, so at that moment, just to so I'm clear. So at that moment, you believe that the solution was in including more of the social sciences. And can you give us an example of what that look like concretely, like in your, how you imagined that integration?
Good question. Well, I guess I imagined it more as having things like subjects like philosophy of science and of knowledge, or anthropology, and more. But we did have a little bit of law, but going a little bit deeper into what tools do we have to have? How do we create policies? Because we were just being educated to understand how how a water filtering system works, but not also communication skills. How are you supposed to communicate with local authorities, or how do you develop an education campaign so that you're also addressing people's behavior, or shaping policies, not only being like technical engineers. This is what I thought about it at this point. And I did 1 year as an Erasmus exchange in France, where I was doing research as part of a research group, doing an internship, which was working with coral in the Mediterranean and episodes of mass mortality. And at that point, I was actually already offered if I wanted to do a PhD with them. And I remember I was looking at this data, which was basically saying, well, at this rate, in 50 or 100 years, the coral is going to become extinct, because the speed that it needs for the new baby polyps to grow is slower than the speed where it's dying. And this was the conclusion. They were looking at photographs from 30 years of photography on rocks following the coral. And I remember I felt so frustrated, like it's not enough to just be doing the science. There needs to be more happening at the political side, or the political level. So this was a little bit my incentive, or my drive, to go and study environmental governance, the political side.
Oh boy.
So I went to Germany, which is supposed to be the mecca of sustainability, and be like the programs, or educational programs, are 20 years older than in Spain. So then I went to Germany to do an international master's on environmental governance. And here I got all of the a lot of the social policy side that I'd been looking for. But again, I felt I realized this is just blah, blah, blah. Like, none of this is really translating into how we live our daily lives. Like, there's a disconnect, students, between what we were being taught and then how sustainable we were able to be as students, where we'd end up going to the cheap supermarket instead of buying organic, this kind of things. So getting the strong feeling of disconnect between what we're saying, talking so much and studying and writing about these topics, and then it's not translating into how we live our daily life. I also did a couple of internships in organizations that work with local governments, local sustainability. But I always had this feeling that there was something missing, that it's not getting to I couldn't put my finger on it, but it's not getting to the root of it. Even later on having friends working very closely to the all the climate change policies and being behind the organization of these events, it just seemed to me like this is a lot of money moving around for event organizing, a lot of paper and talk and conferences, but it's not translating into actual change.
Right. As you're talking, Saif, it's almost like the feeling that I get is if you are a mathematician and you are trying to solve this problem, but you are missing a key variable. There's a missing variable, and so no matter how hard you work on this problem, you cannot solve it because there's at least one or two, who knows how many missing variables that are integral parts of the equation itself. And I can see where that can, you sense that there's like, I don't have all of the information. I don't have all of the pieces here. And yet I'm told that this is it. This is the complete equation. So I keep thinking that the missing piece has to do with how the forces behind our planet being polluted in the first place, which are forces greater than us.
Yeah.
So, but that can't, it's almost like it's like you have these sources of the problem, but they cannot be part of the equation to solve it.
Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah. And even like on one hand, I'd say maybe, which is a little bit the systemic critique of like my feeling now is there's a status quo that is kind of running things, that has the power, that doesn't want things to change. And what I thought were ways were what I was engaged in, these environmental governance and this, that, the other, which seem like processes that are going to have an effect to change the status quo. And I've come to realize that in a way you end up becoming part of that system rather than actually, so your energy is being channeled into becoming part of that system. And it seems to be very hard to actually have some real change, because the very discourse of sustainability, and we can get into that maybe, is perpetuating these ideas from this system. So I don't know if I put that very clearly.
Well, when you say the discourse on sustainability, that discourse is very much is a bit of a narrative. And so it's the sustainability narrative. It's the sustainability story. And this is what is taught. So when you talk about discourse, this is what is, so these approaches in this perspective, this is what is taught. It's from the top down. And it is difficult. It is then difficult to introduce anything into that narrative, or
it's like what I found is I've identified, we as whoever we want to, if you identify as someone who cares about sustainability, you're identifying with a discourse that is actually not very environmentally friendly. Because basically what I've come to realize quite recently actually is, what is the sustainability discourse telling us? It's saying, as a species, we're a parasite. You should feel bad for existing and for your needs. You should feel guilty. You're destroying the planet. And if you want to start to be a good person, you need to sacrifice. So it's this story of there isn't enough for everybody. We're all going to die. We all need to sacrifice a little bit of our happiness so that we don't all die. So it's a very, very negatively oriented.
It's such a grim story.
It's a grim story, and
it puts humans as the antagonist.
Yeah, yes.
The humans are always the antagonist in the story.
It's based on guilt.
Yes.
On shame.
Yes. And blame.
Yes, and blame. So this is what's driving the thing with which we're trying to live in a better planet. And there's something that doesn't add up there.
Yes. Well, so why isn't the character of Monsanto part of this story?
Say that again. What?
Why isn't the character? Let's introduce a character.
Okay.
Monsanto. Let's introduce that character.
Yes.
Does that character ever enter into this grim story? Because that character seems to be one of the biggest villains.
Yes.
When it comes to an enemy of Earth.
Yes.
And yet, if you want to create this story, then let us look at, if you want to look at it as this, this story, then who are the enemies of Earth? Who are the real parasites? And,
exactly.
And so it is this twisted story.
Like, it's a little bit as if we've been redirected instead of seeing that these big companies or big powerful organizations are the problem and are the person. Like, no, you as an individual or as a human are the problem. Which is not to say that we don't have responsibility and power as individuals, but it's turned into a discourse which is more disempowering than empowering.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And it's funny that you mentioned the character, because we actually, when I was in this master's, out of this frustration of feeling like we're just all the time in our head and there's something that isn't matching here, we started a theatre group to portray stories of sustainability, which would connect people not only intellectually but also emotionally and from their heart. We had a Monsanto character actually. Yeah. It was trying to tricking the peasants, tricking the farmers.
Well, I think that the Monsanto character, if I were to draw the Monsanto character, the Monsanto character would be a serial rapist.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Let's be real. Is that not what Monsanto does to Earth?
Yeah.
So a serial rapist. Absolutely. And so quite a vile character, and for what purpose? And a rapist who will then blame the victim.
Yes.
Is that a close enough analogy?
Yes.
So I love the idea of theater because it does bring to life the story for people to experience viscerally.
Yes.
It gets us out of our heads, and I agree with you. So it's powerful not only for those who are studying sustainability, but for those who want to play they want to do their part. They want to play their role. What is my role? What is my role in this? And the story that you say that is kind of imprinted, which looks at humans as the as the parasitic force, and they are the ones who should be ashamed and should be blamed and so forth. I can see where that story would be disturbing to you, because most humans we know, even though there are some that are less conscious about what they do with their trash, or perhaps are a bit wasteful with water and resources, none of the, I mean, all of this pales in comparison to what big corporations do to the environment. You know,
Yeah.
the terraforming and the you know, the strip mining and what Monsanto does, and you know, all of this. We, you know, those it's what these corporations do is inhuman. It is inhuman, and then to go even further, we will blame humans for this inhuman behavior. It's very yeah, it's very insidious. So, but here you are, you took this as far as you could, and you reached a crisis point in your own study, where you were seeing these contradictions. You were seeing that there were missing variables in the equation, and you were wanting to address it and maybe express yourself. And you were in your doctoral studies, I think, when this all came to crisis.
Yeah, I guess I've always been like, so when I was doing the bachelor studies, I felt, okay, there's something missing. I need to bring in the social science discipline. And then when I did that, it was like, no, there's something missing. We're too much in our head. And then I brought in the theater or the art approach to connect with the emotional aspect. And with this idea of bringing in an aspect of education and pedagogy and art as a tool for change and transformation with sustainability, I started my PhD. And here I was working in a team with 12 other PhD students. We're under a project called Processes of Sustainability Transformation. So it had this fancy name, a lot of funding. And there were 2 of us within the project as students, which had the role to support the knowledge integration or collaboration within the team. So a lot of my work had to do with facilitating collaboration. We could create things together, even if the students were coming from different disciplines. And I was based on the philosophy of Paulo Freire, which has a lot to do with looking at power relations. To bring this into academia, to have a look at how power relations are operating within academia and how they're hindering co-creation with each other. Because this is also what I was coming to realize in my sustainability journey, that one of the aspects, it's like there's even if we have all the technical solutions or all the policies, if you watch academics, you can't sit 7 people down who are experts in their topic and have a conversation with each other that doesn't end up in some sort of ego battle of who's right. Then what's the point of having the knowledge? Like, if we can't work together. And this is where I was orienting the work. And then the crisis came ironically, with the power relations with the supporters of the project.
Yeah, so you didn't, in a way, you probably should have saw that coming.
I don't know how I've managed to maintain myself as extremely naive.
but I think
everything.
I actually think that Saif, that speaks to your humanity, because I think that we as humans, we hold out for the very best. We have hope that our very best efforts to to do better, to do our best, will be received in in a way that supports the kind of improvement, the kind of change that we desire, if it's in the best interest of many. But what we don't see, what we don't anticipate, and what is that we are blindsided by, is these power moves that are anti-human, that are not, that don't, that are kind of outside our thinking, in that I am a human, I want to support other humans, I want to support humanity in these ways. And so, of course, what I am presenting would make perfect sense, because this is about supporting humanity in this way that we say we want to support, and yet it is smashed by in ways that blindside us, because it's coming from a place that doesn't feel human. It doesn't feel like it is in the best, towards the best interests of humanity. Like, why wouldn't that be supported? You know what I mean? It's kind of, and so I think, like, we can call it naivete, but I honestly think it's just this fundamental belief that if we are being true to our desire to do something constructive and supportive for a higher good for humanity, then of course this would be, for those who say that is what they want as well, you would think that there would be some kind of harmony, even if there were disagreements about how to go about it. There would be some kind of embracing. There would be some kind of embracing. And so
I guess,
so but at any rate, that's kind of, I wanted to just say that, because I think all too often we chalk it up for being naive. And I think a lot of times it is just that we are being human.
This the expression of do no harm as a moral code. It's a very human moral code. It's a very fundamental. But there's a second part to it, which I had to learn the hard way, which is do no harm and take no bullshit.
Yes.
I think you need both.
You do need both. You do need both.
I think I've been learning the second.
Do no harm years. And find balance, set boundaries.
Yeah, exactly. Set boundaries.
But so what happened next? Okay.
So I don't want to like turn it into a lamentation, but I'll explain a little bit, or I'll tell you a little bit about what happened within the PhD project. So there was there was 12 of us, 12 students, and it was a project which was getting a lot of funding, and it involved another about 12 supervisors. So each student would have 2 supervisors. So it's quite a complex project where you had these, half the students were working on sustainable textiles, the other half on sustainable food production, and then we're doing this integration. And so because of this integration framing, there was from the beginning this idea of collaboration. And from the start, this started to create there were some already discrepancies or issues coming up when the students realized that most of the supervisors was telling them, no, forget about collaborating, you just have to get your PhD finished. So this was already from the start. And then my experience after 3 years was that, let's see, how do I put it? So my first supervisor turned out to be a very manipulative person, narcissistic, very hard to work with, which I slowly realized also from the other students that she had under her supervision, which were from a different project. And my second supervisor was the head of the project, who was the one who had created the structure. But as I slowly realized, this was only for the surface and for the photograph, but there was no real intention of there actually being things like this knowledge integration happening amongst the students. So basically, most of the initiatives that I started with the group were not supported, undermined, and there was like, the whole experience, it was a little bit, for me, it gave me, it was like a microcosmos of what you see in politics, of in very good initiatives coming from the bottom up, from the groups of students, and then this not being supported, things like.
Well, it is almost like you have the big moneyed organization, political organization coming in and co-opting all of these really wonderful intentions that are basically they're going to make them look good. They have no intention of actually actualizing any of this.
Exactly.
They
There's
just
no intention
want,
of actualizing.
it's a photo op.
Yeah, exactly. Yes.
See our groundbreaking work in sustainability, because that in effect will get them more green funding money.
Yes, exactly.
And votes and whatever what positions, whatever else. Yeah. So the idealism and the passion and the kind of the pure intention of the young people like yourself who were basically putting your heart and soul into this work because you believe in it wholeheartedly. That was basically harvested and used and opportunized off of by within a political structure, within the I'm going to say within the academic structure. And that this wasn't just in one university. It's basically you saw this across the board.
Well, this was specifically in one university, but I've seen the people I've spoken to, I've seen that it's definitely a systemic problem of the whole academic system has, like, it doesn't foster collaboration. It fosters competitivity, elbowing everyone out so that there are very few positions. They're hard to keep. You're under tremendous pressure to publish, especially professors.
Yes.
So the students end up being seen as just like potential papers with legs, not people. Yes. And it's not anymore about the knowledge. It's about, and the whole system of recognition, which is through paper publications where your name is the first, and then who is the second author, it lends itself towards creating a very, very ego-centered culture.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And well, this was what I was slowly seeing throughout the project, where it was harder and harder to feel motivated. Yeah, like kind of getting into burnout, where
No, absolutely. Burnout.
like we're putting all of this energy into this, and actually these professors that are taking the photograph, they don't really care about the content of what's being created. And what's more, they don't want there to be any initiative that they're not the leader of, or the boss, or that they haven't pre-planned before. So there was a plan of how the whole thing was supposed to go, and then having these new initiatives coming up were a problem. So that was one layer. And then the other thing that happened was that after 3 years, 3 years and a half, 3 years, I decided, okay, I couldn't deal anymore with this supervisor because of the unprofessionalism, the bullying. So I decided to change supervisors. And not surprisingly, this supervisor's response was to tell me that I couldn't finish unless I was with her, or to imply that, which was not surprising. But then what was a new layer of discovery of how academia works was what I encountered after this. So I went to my second supervisor, who was the head of the project, to ask him for support, tell him that I couldn't work with this person anymore, that there were precedents, there were other students that had also had to change supervisors when they having her. So there are precedents within the university of other students having the same problem. She was supposed to get her tenure professorship, and she didn't get it. So in other words, she was had already been expelled by the actual university for being a very problematic person. So I had a new person who was going to step in as supervisor instead of her. And when I went to my second supervisor, the head of the project, to ask him for support during this process, I encountered with, no, you can't do that because that's going to look bad for the project. And then when I insisted, I'm sorry, I'm going to do this anyway. What I encountered, then I was told that if I went ahead, I would have to give back all of the money of 3 years of scholarship I'd received. So he was trying to intimidate me with this financial aspect. So then this followed a whole 10 months of drama where I would go to the dean of the faculty. And first he would tell me like, oh, this is an alarming situation. Okay, we have to go to Unpublish. I'm going to speak with him because he was close friends with this leader of the project. And then would come back to me after. Oh, are you not, maybe you're being too emotional, or like crazy. So I went through all sorts of processes. I had dozens of meetings with each time higher and higher positions of responsibility. And then I found myself in this system where the head of the PhD committee, who's going to make the decision on the change, is the mentor of this second supervisor, who is the best friend of the dean. So it's all this incestuous process.
And this was really all about changing supervisors.
And it was something as simple as changing supervisors.
Yeah.
Something that can be done within a week. Like it went on for months. I said, no, now you have to do this. Now you have to have a mediation. I had a 4-week mediation with the first supervisor.
And the whole point was that at this point, even though people had changed out from having this particular professor as a supervisor before, you wanting to do it now would have made it look bad for this professor in this project. There was a lot of money riding on it. There were political positions riding on it. Many of the people that you actually had to meet with were probably invested in it going through in the way that it was currently organized, because of their own connection or investment in the project. Am I getting this straight?
Yeah, kind of. Like it was definitely this issue of this is going to look bad, but it's also hard. And to give a bit of context, the other student who had the same role as myself in the team, and also had these two same professors as supervisors, had been kicked out a few months before, and had also had a conflict with both of these professors. So it could be speculated that by me also wanting to change supervisors, this would, or point towards the fact that the issue wasn't only with the student.
Right, that this student actually had a legitimate grievances.
Yes, and that the professors weren't doing for some reason, weren't doing a very good job. And the other aspect is, it seems like all of the professors owe each other favors, and there's this whole power thing going on beneath. Like even the professors who stepped forward and said they would support me and be my new supervisor, which I had to go through a few of them. They would tell me, look, I want to supervise you, but first I need to speak to this other professor. Right. Because otherwise I'm putting my own career at risk.
Right. So it sounds like it was it really sounds like politics.
Yeah, that was,
it sounds like
I realized at one point was, this isn't science, this isn't about knowledge, this is pure politics.
It's total politics. It sounds like you could actually just, if you didn't use the word professor, this would sound like something that would happen within Congress or within some political organization.
Yeah.
It's the same.
And in fact, this professor that was like the leader of the project is now the president of a new high school place, and had been trying to leave and then maintain his position so he could come back to this university. So it's really all about politics.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the titles that these people hold, they're like the research that they're supposed to be doing, or what they're supposed to be standing for, are things like environmental education for sustainability, pedagogy, or the first professor I had, like our topic was all about unhealthy power relations. So the situation, it was just like, is this some sort of joke?
Oh God. So here you are, just to kind of begin to wrap up. So this has been your journey, and here you are. You like to describe it as in a bit of a void space right now, in this you are a refugee from academia and from the sustainability movement. You find yourself here in this, as you call it, it's an uncomfortable void space for you. I like to think of it as the space of infinite possibility, because it is a void space. What now?
Well, there's a few directions I'm interested, and I'm trying to put them together in a way that makes sense. One of them is what we were talking about before, this concept of conscious sustainability, and reframing the concept of sustainability in a way that it's about our connection to the earth, to each other, to ourselves, and creating a discourse that's empowering, not disempowering. So this is one of the things that I'm interested in. And I'm also, I'm a facilitator. This is also what I had when I came into the PhD. And I'm still trying to figure out what is the place or the target audience where my facilitation could be useful or make sense for, and whether it is academia or whether it needs to be something that's touching reality a little bit more. Yeah.
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 It seems to me that a younger audience, I always, I teach high school myself, but it seems like in academia, until the structure of academia is fundamentally changed, you may not be able to do what you want. It almost seems like,
although,
what were you thinking?
Well, this is not to say that there aren't a lot of amazing people within academia, but maybe it's about finding the right allies. Or to build meaningful projects despite what you have to navigate.
So do you want to focus on the education aspect? So when you say facilitator, what would be the like the perfect scenario for you in terms of being a facilitator? How do you imagine that?
Oh, this is a difficult question.
Like who would you be facilitating, and what kind of environment?
Yeah, I feel as though what I'm most familiar with is let's say transdisciplinary context, which would be a group of scientists with a community or a certain group of people trying to achieve something together, and things aren't working because the scientists are maybe making some assumptions about what the community wants, and they haven't really, and they're coming with their expertise, but they maybe haven't had the opportunity or known how to actually listen to the knowledge that's already within the community, or what are the needs that aren't being met. So they're making assumptions about this is what would be good for you, instead of paying a bit more attention to what's the reality of this community. So this is where I could come in and help find more synergies
between, so that whatever approach to sustainability in a particular community is organic. No pun intended, but it's kind of like you want the like the approaches to be not top down.
Yes, and it's exactly that it's coming from what's actually alive within every person.
Yeah.
Like, which is forming this community, or which is going to put their money and time into it. Like what are the actual passions of the people behind it? What are the actual needs?
You need that the community to be invested in whatever efforts. And they're not going to be invested in efforts that are imposed on them.
Yeah. And we often, in the sustainability community, or if we can call it that, we often think that it's about educating people because they're not aware enough. So, and that it can start with the best of intentions, but it can end up being about, I'm telling you what you need and what is good for you.
Yeah.
Instead of allowing it to come from what we already know as a community, and what we know that we need or that we want, or what excites us.
Yeah. Well, so so the concept or the practice of sustainability will look unique to every community.
Exactly. Yeah.
And
And this
it should look unique to every community.
Yeah, yes, yeah. And it can also apply to business.
Businesses, you said?
Yeah, to business organization, in the sense that seeing sustainability as more than having your 3 recycling bins.
Yes.
Not to say that recycling isn't a great thing or isn't something that should be promoted, but it's a deeper approach where it's not just about, oh, now they came and told us an extra thing that I'm supposed to do.
That's right.
In my day, or one more worry, one more burden, and if you don't do it, which I think engenders a bit of a childish behavior when because you're being treated a bit like a child.
Like a child, yeah. You're not treated as an equal member of the, decision making in terms of what is best for your community. So,
or even someone that may have a lot to contribute to whatever sustainability vision is being created.
Yeah. It makes me think, and it's almost becoming a little cliche right now, so I don't mean it in that way, but the realization that so much of the change that we want to make is really about local communities, is about doing what we can on a local basis, So I see this approach as almost like an integral model, an integral part of the local model. How do local communities create their own systems, maybe create their own educational systems, create their own sustainability systems, create their own systems that are autonomous. Yeah. So that's exciting.
Yeah.
What were you?
I was thinking of tapping into, like, everyone has their dreams, their skills that they're really good at, their passion. And I feel as though deeper or more conscious sustainability would be tapping into this, because this is where, like, no matter what organization you're working with, if you're bringing that to the surface, allowing everybody to be seen, to be heard, and to have some room for using their skills and gifts and passions, then things are going to happen. Then you have the unexpected solutions that you never You can have things change much faster than any model could have predicted.
Absolutely.
Compared to the model that we gravitate to, which is that we control it, we have everything figured out beforehand. It's all about controlling and evaluating and assessing.
Yes.
This dry bureaucratic approach where everything is kind of dead, and then you're just going through the motions.
Right. And this is something that you have been talking about for a long time, and that's the power of collaboration.
Yes. Yeah.
Which is what you had wanted to do in these studies that didn't quite fit into the model when you were pursuing your doctoral studies. It's the power of collaboration. Yeah. And you have to be willing to go with the unpredictable, because when you and the unexpected,
which is where all of it's like the generative space, or where the magic can happen.
Where the magic can happen.
Because it's not going to happen in the place where all the problems are created.
That's right. which really brings me back to this void space that you described that you're in, and how powerful and full of possibility it is, if you find those who want to collaborate with you, want to play with you, want to
Yes.
create with you,
Yes.
in the void space.
Yeah.
It's the possibilities are endless.
Yes.
So I would like to be one of those collaborators with you.
Oh, fantastic. Welcome on board.
There you go.
Let's do it.
So let's do it. And,
Yeah.
let this be one of many of your calls to those who are passionate about our beautiful earth, and creative, and want to help create these dynamic approaches to sustainability that are kind of free from the bounds of these academic structures, that are more organic, if you will, and
Yeah.
collaborative,
Yeah.
and unique to the environments within which people are working and living, creating.
Yeah.
So, well, this has been a wonderful conversation. I think it's going to be the first of many, I hope. And I would love to just share with my listeners how they might reach you if they'd like to reach out and work with you or speak with you.
So I should have thought of this beforehand. I'm working on a webpage. I don't know if should I share the domain?
Well, is it still under construction?
It's under construction.
When do you think it's going to launch?
Depends what I say here.
Would you like it to be something that people can find maybe at the beginning of 2022, in the new year?
Yeah, that sounds good.
Yeah, new year, new ideas, new collaborations. That would be lovely. Sometime in January, it should be live. And oh, wonderful. Sure. So for those who are listening, this is a website that is currently being created and will be launched for the new year, which is awesome. I can't wait to visit it myself. And what's the domain?
It's a bit ironic. So the current domain is called connecting-academia. So connecting academia.
Is it how is that written? I'm going to put it up. I'm going to put it in the comments. So it's
okay.
Is it the word connecting?
Yeah.
Connecting minus the minus sign?
Yeah, minus sign academia. I'm probably going to be changing the domain name as well. Yeah, you can. Yeah. And you know what the thing is that if people get to you that way, you can always redirect them to whatever site is next. You can have a few. Yeah. You can have a few, right? I like it though. Connecting minus academia. Wonderful. Well, that's kind of what you're up to. Yeah. Yeah. And I'm also on Facebook or my email down at the bottom of it. Yes. Yeah. So so for my listeners, I'm going to have Saif's website and email at the bottom in the comment section. So please, visit her, ask her questions if you want to participate in a collaboration with her. It looks like 2022 is going to be a fascinating and creative year for many of us. And so
I personally look forward to being part of that process with you, Saif.
Yeah, me too. Thank you.
Thank you so much for joining me today, and I look forward to our next conversation.
Same here. Thank you very much.
For all my books, services, and recordings, please visit PattiLuciaWrites.com. Thanks for listening.